had the opportunity to interview Emily Lundy, a marketing professional currently working at CIPR Communications, the local firm here in Calgary. And one of the main things that is known about them is they are a fully remote operation, and we're going to dig into that a little bit later on in her day-to-day life. Kind of interesting about her is that she does bring a unique perspective to the marketing field, blending creativity, strategy, and passion. Our conversation covered a range of topics from her unconventional career path, starting out in political science, and key skills to success, including evolving with marketing, the constant learning that's required for it, and of course the technology that's kind of become part of it, and that's why it's called AI in the industry. Through this interview, I gained a lot of valuable insights that helped open up my mind for what marketing can become outside of the classroom, and kind of saw how her path took her a different route than even she herself expected. So who is Emily? Emily is a dynamic marketing professional. She has, like I said, studied in political science and communications and didn't really have that background field in marketing before starting out there. She is working right now with Christina, who's the owner of CIPR Communications, partnered with her husband and kind of started this local firm. She describes it herself as a smaller firm that they get to kind of work on a one-on-one basis with their clients, and they get to pick and choose because they are a little bit of a smaller firm and they aren't reliant on those big heavy contracts from people like Coca-Cola or something like that, where they're dealing with that countrywide marketing scheme. Rather, they get to work individually with the local companies that kind of tailor to what they know and what they have to offer. So a couple reasons that I did choose to go with Emily. Biggest thing is her diverse and non-traditional background. Like I've said a couple times, she did start out in political science and communications instead of marketing. She always was somebody who loved to kind of get into the debates of things. She loved to look at the politics and the background of all of those information as well. Her story kind of gave you a little bit more of a broad perspective that people that don't follow that traditional route to say, hey, I'm going to study this, and then from there on, that's all that I'm going to look at for the rest of my life. She took a very different side to start it and then kind of moved into this different career path. Another reason I chose her is she does have real-world experience with content and strategy. She is their web management specialist and works in digital strategy, content creation, and she also produces their in-house podcasts that they have come out every once in a while. One of her more bigger episodes that kind of took by storm was called AI in Tourism, and how that kind of affected that industry, and we spoke a little bit about that in the podcast as well. She has had a lot of hands-on experience that goes beyond just the theory of it and gets to play around with that SEO and a lot of the analytics and things that play along with that. Emily is also a really great communicator and storyteller. Of course, coming from her communications background, that also helps out. She was be great in the podcast. She's, again, has that experience with podcasts previously, as well as video podcasts. So she kind of had an idea of what I was looking for when I was speaking to her, to kind of get an idea about what she knew and how to kind of go on with those questions from someone who isn't very experienced in podcasting. She also really does have a passion for learning, and we'll speak about that and how her continuing education helps her in her work. And yeah. So Emily is, like I said, she always loves to have that. If you're not constantly learning in marketing, you're already falling behind. And that was one of the big key takeaways that I had from our conversation. Again, she keeps emphasizing this, especially with all the new platforms coming out, like TikTok, and then now you have Truther and all these other new ones that are coming out. You have to be able to stay on top of it with the emergence of them, how the customer behavior shifts, and the technologies that play part in it, like AI. During our conversation, she kept hammering this point home, saying that you have to stay curious and adaptable, and it's essential for your long-term success in this industry. It's also important because, again, marketing changes. You have to keep up with the different trends, with the different ideas that people come up with, stay woke with the different consumer things that come around and everything like that. Again, you have to be a lifelong learner, which is both challenging and inspiring, and reminds you that you have to be ready to embrace change and seek knowledge in your career. So like I said, she didn't start with that traditional marketing background. She actually started in political science and communications, looking for more of a corporate job, and then kind of leaned in towards this after working in a few places. Um, as she said, it kind of surprised her as well, because she always assumed that she wanted to go more for that communications and everything like that, but kind of developed that passion for marketing later on, leading her into a job of web content creation and even producing the company podcast. Her nonlinear path taught me that the field of marketing is very flexible and open to diverse backgrounds, kind of having that niche that everybody else can fall into, and somebody that you can find that place where you belong to help out. It's not a scripted field that you have to do a certain amount of years of school and then you can just go into it and that's kind of what you do for the rest of your life, like a trade. It is something that allows people to come from all the different walks of life, whether it be a school teacher or someone who had a business prior and kind of has learned these things along the way and is now just sharing it with others to help them succeed as well. Biggest thing is that her experience shows you that you can be open-minded, and as long as you're willing to pivot, you can get into a career like marketing, and those diverse experiences in your background can be an asset in your field. So again, she highlighted a big thing, that marketing is all about communication. If you can't communicate with the client or understand the message that the client wants to get across, or if you don't connect with that message, it becomes very difficult for you to be able to work with that person. And that's one of the advantages that she mentioned with her firm, is that if they don't jive with a person, they do have that opportunity to drop the person and say, hey, what you're looking for isn't something that we can offer with what you want to do. Maybe try finding someone else. And of course, that also on the flip side allows them to work continuously with other clients that kind of work well with them, and allows them to kind of work together in that cohesive relationship. And again, because of the fact that you are constantly in a communications background, it is important that you kind of have that analytical ability that will let you work with that client in a way that works for them and for you as well. Again, especially with the evolving marketing landscape, you have to be able to look into those data and understand what's not working and why it's not working for that particular client. And again, be able to kind of tailor it for that person and go from there. So a little bit that we did talk about is our current landscape in the marketing industry, which is super exciting and super changing continuously on every other day. One of the main challenges she discussed is keeping up with the rapid technology changes, like the AI-driven chatbots and the content generators and things that people are trying to create to take over the work of those marketers right now. Now, while she did mention it is, again, an asset to those people that they can use those chatbots and things like that, Blaze AI and ChatGPT and things like that, that will help them, they still need to have that base plan to kind of create a marketing plan, which is where maybe instead of looking at the technology, you should look at a traditional marketing agency, just again because they have that background in the industry and why you would need to want to kind of go with them and work with them. One of her specific examples was SEO optimization and how that's affected by AI, pointing out that people are using things like ChatGPT to get those quick and fast answers that they think will give them the all-knowing and ever-changing answers to the great algorithm that we all praise. But it is a huge challenge because that kind of disrupts the way that traffic is going through things like Google and Bing and things like that, and changes what they would create a baseline out of. So trying to keep up with that in that ever-changing industry. Another big thing that we talked about is kind of how she talks to these clients and how she meets with these clients, and that's why she said a casual coffee chat and a LinkedIn message can be the biggest thing leading to your next opportunity. She has always mentioned the fact that her role isn't something that she was planning on getting. It's something that kind of fell into her lap, and she said she would try, and kind of fell in love with it. And that's why it's, again, away from her original idea of going through political science and communications. So again, following with that continuous learning and skill development throughout your life and being ready to pivot on a dime. Now, like I mentioned in the beginning, CIPR is notably a fully remote firm. They don't have that traditional office 9 to 5 life that they go into. And that's something that when we spoke about it, she mentioned she struggled with a lot, especially in the beginning during COVID and things like that, when everybody was in that great transition to, okay, we can't go into an office, and kind of not having that separation from that office life and home life, but because it is in the same place. And it's intense that way. Like again, when you think of a marketing job, you always think that, oh, it's probably a little bit of content creation, working in an office, working with a team, and doing that all as a collaborative kind of industry, but in the same place. With CIPR being fully remote, they kind of had to change that up and figure out how can we work together from afar. And that's why they do a lot of things like company retreats and working together and trying to like maybe go for a walk with your other team members and things like that. Again, it's like she said, it's a balance of creativity and data working together to try to create that teamwork, but also being able to get your work done and also being able to shut it off when the day is over. And again, like we said couple of times by now, her degree isn't marketing. Um, she was never planning to go into a business kind of degree. She was always planning to go and work for politics. She loves politics and she loves to see how that industry is changing. Of course, threw her the wrench in there to say, like, hey, now we've got this wonderful guy down south who has no clue what he's doing and is creating a nightmare on both the political and marketing sides of things. And how does that kind of play into her industry? And it was interesting to see her take on that and how that has affected our different industry and how it's going to continue to affect us, and see how we have to be able to evolve on a dime as he changes things on us. And one of the notable examples that we did talk about was with Elon Musk bringing Teslas to the White House to kind of bring that element in, and the ethical nightmare and the marketing nightmare that's created for the Tesla team. And definitely took some interesting things there. So all in all, a really interesting conversation with Emily, and how kind of her non-traditional path into marketing has opened my eyes to see that it doesn't have to be a linear approach. It doesn't have to be this is the way we're going to do it, this is what our plan is, and that's how we're going to approach it. It does change on the dime. It is something that honestly is available for people to take up to interpretation and is kind of needed in this industry. So definitely look forward to working with her in the future on something else and kind of picking her brain about it.